All right, here we go. OverDrive off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN 4. Bryan Hayes, Doug, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan.
What's up?
What's up? How we feeling on a Monday afternoon?
Well, some people have been tweeting in their thoughts on this very Monday, and one guy just sent me a tweet and said, it's hashtag Black Bean Soup Monday for Al's brother. and ACB. Another one said, it's time to put Al's brother on the waiver. They are so fed up with hashtag TG and all of the antics.
I know.
And I don't know. It's all it's just in fun. It's a small competition. We don't really take it that seriously. But I'll tell you what, they've had enough. The owner of the gym, and this isn't a joke, and it's nothing against Al's brother, he told me he made $35,000 last year fading Al's brother's picks.
Fading?
Well,
yes.
fading him and fading us right now is a very smart financial decision because it's disgusting what's happening.
You're
right
like
now.
an old school GM that brought in an analytics guru, and you bought into everything.
I did. Well,
I could see you nodding, and in your head you're like, "This isn't right. This isn't."
Were you Monty
right.
with him?
I loved the Packers last night, outright.
Yeah.
To win the ball game. I was on SC with Jay. I was on Jay Onright's show.
I watched that
last Monday, and I finished my hit with Jay saying, I'm calling it right here, right now on national TV. Packers shock the world, win outright, make the playoffs. And then we get to the picks on Friday, and I recused myself, which is so stupid and so gutless.
You were 27 under at the no balls open,
but
you shriveled.
I did shrivel, but for multiple reasons. One, with a big game, I just didn't want it hanging over me. I just wanted to watch a football game.
But
I did not
you're a fan, you try to not get involved in those games,
and that's another element to it. It's like maybe I'm not seeing this as clearly. I will admit to my bias here.
Right.
But actually what it did prove, and it makes me feel better about Hayes and Bro than I ever have, is that tremendous information can only be fulfilled with gut instinct.
So you have to marry them together.
The marrying did not happen, and that's why we lost. And now that will never happen again. Tremendous information will continue, but the gut instinct will be back. And I'm telling you right now, you guys, what was it, the 09, 2010 Leafs? You guys are gassing up the 18-wheeler.
No way.
You're Brian Burke and Ron Wilson, the two of you, and you are going to absolutely drive off a cliff. I can tell you guys are not that confident in the way you're picking because that Eagles pick was horrendous.
Dude,
that's one of the worst picks of the season.
I was going to tell JP to clip that because what did I say about that pick? I said the Eagles are destined and ready to take one right in the pills. And guess what they got? That's what they got.
So where were you? Where's your stones? Why didn't you step up and tell your analytic darling, in this case, Luke Wilson?
Up, aren't they?
They're way up.
Dude,
they're
you have a very
short
short memory. I told him, I said, Luke, that is my. He goes, I'm kind of in between on this pick, Partsy. And I said, I think the Niners, because last week they almost coughed one up, and at the record of 10-1, I think they're ready to cough one up, and that's exactly what they did. But my Partsy, who is the captain of my team, he didn't have the stones to go with me because in his mind, if it doesn't go right, he gets embarrassed because he let the hockey guy make the pick and it didn't work out.
I understand that. And now you know where I'm coming from. And here's where I have an appreciation for your stance. Your partner had a vibe and you went with him. I had a vibe and my partner absolutely took a sky dump all over it and said, I don't care about that. We're still taking the Chiefs.
You guys should,
but I got to own it. It doesn't matter. It's all good.
Well, you know what you should do?
It's all good.
What's that show? Is it How to Be a Millionaire? We should be final answer.
Yes, you're right.
You guys we should actually have that and say final answer because what happens is if you're wavering, the minute you say final answer, it's like, okay, are we in on this? Are we both married to this? Because maybe we'll start doing that moving forward.
You play the role of Regis Philbin, and we will play the role of contestants on that show.
Get the music and everything.
We need everything.
Final answer.
Final answer.
There's been some wavering, and what happens when you guys lose? The complaining comes out.
I know. I listen. I got to own it. It's my team. I love Al's brother. I still love our chances. We're still in a great spot. No, statistically, we're still alive,
dude.
But what sticks out last night is Jordan Love. There's a lot of you talk about receipts. That's a new saying in the sports world the last decade or so. I'm
Keeping
keeping
receipts.
receipts. What receipts, dude?
Yeah, I know.
I'm keeping receipts. Okay.
Oh, because some guy said you weren't looking good in practice 3 years ago?
Right. But the receipts are going to be from the Packers front office when they stuck their neck out and took that kid. When the whole world said it was buffoonery.
And they had Aaron Rodgers.
They had
sitting-
Rodgers there, and everyone said, you got to take a wideout for him, or you got to take some offensive weaponry, or what are you thinking? And the Packers, because they're a well-run organization, said, we don't care about outside noise.
Right.
We believe this guy can be the key that will transition us from Favre to Rodgers to the next generation.
I wouldn't get so, I don't think you're talking about...
He's not a superstar, but...
He's not. But what he's got right now, Hayes, is an opportunity to get the Packers into the playoffs. They got a garbage... They're playing weak teams coming up.
Yes, they are.
I think they got the Giants coming up soon, who are garbage. And they got Tampa, I believe, after that.
Carolina,
So
the Bears...
Man,
look at that. They got to love that schedule.
They can walk.
It's wide open. They got
Scary
at the
part,
Vikings.
Scary part is I don't want this kid to get full of himself here. That's the scary part.
Yes.
Jordan Love starts to get the love and starts to get ahead of himself, and then he starts looking like Zach Wilson.
It's a great point, and I think an important one to make. This will say a lot about the culture, the system, what he's made of. Matt LaFleur as a coach.
Right.
Because that's the biggest win of his career, clearly. He outplayed Patrick Mahomes at Lambeau under the lights in December. That is huge.
Yeah.
Now they're at the Giants next week. They're going to be a huge favorite. Everyone's going to be pumping their tires.
Phone's been blowing up. He's going to be doing interviews all week and podcasts and you name it.
It would not be shocking if that's a close game or they lose that game.
Yes.
Like, it really would not be shocking.
That's where he's got
the
to
youngest team in the league.
You just mentioned Zach Wilson. What on earth is that guy doing?
Well,
he says, I might think about playing. He says, if they approach me to play, I would make that guy disappear and go play in the XFL. I would think about playing? That's insane.
Yeah, there's a report out there. Diana Rossini is reporting that the Jets want to make a quarterback switch. No kidding. Tim Boyle. That's what killed Hazen, bro.
Boyle on the
Ever
ass.
since Boyle on the ass arrived, we haven't picked a winner. It has been a Boyle on our resume. We have a Boyle on our resume, and it's him is its first name. But Rossini tweeting out that they want to make a switch, and the team is leaning towards Zach Wilson to take over, but he is reluctant to step back in.
What the hell does that
Is it the
even
coach
mean?
saying, like, you're up, and he's like, no, I'm good?
Yeah, and I guess she followed it up by suggesting or reporting that Rodgers may have reached out and said, hey, man, you got to be ready to go. And I guess he might be injured or something, or he's not sure. It's a horrible look for him if that's true. And I guess Saleh came out today and doused some water on it and said, if this were true, he wouldn't be here anymore.
Right.
Like, they would cut him immediately if they went up to him and said, hey, you're in. And he goes, no, I'm good, thanks. Like, if he was Roger Dorning the Jets, they would immediately cut him, and they'd have to.
They'd have to.
But it's a mess in New York, and that was a big win by the Packers. The Niners made the statement of the season. Luke Wilson will be in studio at 5 o'clock. I'm sure he'll be very humble.
He's going to be fired.
Very humble.
The last thing is, I don't know why, but I put time into that Patriots game. Which
That's the worst football game ever
that might
played.
have been. It was awful. Like, I don't know why. I put a little time in. I was, moving around, and it was terrible. And Billy B, he wants to lose now.
Yes,
Like, they're dying to.
They're tanking now.
Dying to, but, like, that game was ridiculous.
Well,
I think maybe Billy B had the idea. It's like, let's do some kind of modified tank where it's going to look like we're trying, but we actually aren't, and we really suck. And it's like, let's lose 10-6 every week. I think that's, honestly, I don't think it's far-fetched.
Well, I'll give you a stat that would suggest that's exactly what's happening. The NFL on CBS tweeting out, the Patriots have lost 3 straight games where they allowed 10 points or fewer. No team has done that since 1938. You know how hard it is to lose when you give up 10 or less? It's almost impossible, especially in this era. And that is a dignified lot. What that says is defense is good, special teams is good, pretty disciplined.
Got some framework.
Quarterback and offense is an absolute dumpster fire.
Dude, dumpster. That's a blow-up doll as a quarterback.
It is. It's awful. I apologize to you on behalf of the NFL for subjecting yourself to that.
Yeah.
Luke Wilson coming up. We've got Steve Phillips coming up from the winter meetings in Nashville. I find the Shohei Ohtani stuff hysterical, the way people are reacting to reports that he might take some time, as if it's not a major life decision for him. Like, why would he feel any obligation to get it done today so that we have something to talk about?
Isn't he allowed to, like,
He can do
mull this
whatever he
over
wants
with his family?
And you think
and
teams
love
are going to say, all right, we're out because we have a timeline of the winter meetings? They're going to
I
sit
know,
and
but
wait for him.
You kind of, like, thinking about it as an athlete, when you're making the decision, you probably stay up all night one night and say, oh, what would be better? Like, if you really need a tour of one of the cities, possibly, but you kind of know what you're going to do.
Well, this is what my question would be. If there's two organizations that he's really circled, there's going to be something, and he'll never say it, but I'd love to know what puts him over the top.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, is it cost of living? Is it taxes? Is it,
cost of living, Noodles? He's going to sign a $600 million contract.
If it is, I actually appreciate that.
But you know what I mean?
He's that
Like, there's
frugal.
factors that come in, favorite restaurants, you name it. Like, I would love to know behind the scenes what his checklist is, because it may not just be the future of this team and where I'm going to play and how I feel. It might be like, hey, I love hanging out in this city or living in this area. Like, there's going to be more to it. I'd love to know what was the factor that put him over the top to sign with one organization than the other. If the money's the same.
It's a perfect segue into what we're looking for today, all right? Something to chew on, brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. From touchdowns to tie bites and puck drops to pizza, BP's elite lineup of apps, wings, and ice cold beers, always dialed in for game time. Hustle into your local BP tonight. At OverDrive 1050, we're asking people, what could the Blue Jays pitch that no other team can? And get creative with this, because it can be as simple as the Gardner sucks. No other city has the Gardner. If maybe you can buy a house in Forest Hill and you can wait for the Eglinton LRT. By the end of your contract, it'll probably be prepared. Who knows? But, like, what can Toronto, the Blue Jays, Canada, like, what can they pitch? Because it can't just be money.
No.
Obviously, it could be. You could always say, we'll give an extra $50 million more than anyone else. Like, you could do that. But the chances of the Blue Jays negotiating against themselves and handing him $50 million more than anyone else, $100 million more than anyone else, I think is very unlikely. So I think money is going to be pretty equal between the Jays, the Dodgers, whoever it is.
Yeah.
They understand what the price is, and that's what it's going to be. Every team's going to go in there and say, we believe in our program and our culture, and we're trying to win. They're all going to pitch that.
Yeah, they're all pitching.
Right? So what is it the Jays can pitch that nobody else can? I can give you one that we all experienced on Saturday night.
Go ahead.
The alumni box down at the Leaf game.
Ooh.
Maybe that's something. Oh, you could get involved. You can send a note to Shapiro and Atkins and say, whenever Ohtani wants to go to a game, he can be my guest in the alumni box.
That's all I can think of, man. I was going to say,
that's
you
a
can
10
be
bell
like
thing, though.
Yes,
a hero of a whole country because the Jays represent the whole country. But I honestly think wherever an athlete is from nowadays, I don't think anything like that would mean anything to them. Do you know what I mean? Like something kind of sentimental like that, like you could capture the attention of a whole country. I think he would be like, yeah, great. I play baseball. I just think I don't know of any era anyone would. I'm trying to think, like, what about Canada? What about Toronto? You could throw at him where he would be like, man, that's really cool.
Like, do they like, if he's a big music fan, like, do they have Drake reach out to him? Stuff like that. Like, if he's a Drake guy, like, it just something, because he would have to be reaching out to people from that area in his stratosphere. Mm-hmm. So maybe they do have Drake reach out to him and go, hey, if you're thinking that I live here.
Wouldn't it be nice, Hayes? Like, wouldn't it be nice just once? And I know we traded for Kawhi. We drafted Austin Matthews. Wouldn't it be nice for somebody sometime to just say, you know what? I've been to Toronto when I played there. I just love the city, and it's the place I want to play. Like, instead of like kind of trying to dig up pitches and getting Drake to call them and all this other BS you got to do when you're trying to sign a guy, like, wouldn't it be nice just one time for a guy to say, the time I spent in Toronto, I love the city. Mm-hmm. It fits what I like and what I like to do, and that's what I picked. Like, God, that would be nice to hear one damn time.
It would obviously be incredible, especially when you're talking about the magnitude of the player, right? Because they have signed, like George Springer was a big signing. Yep. Kevin Gausman, a big signing. They've had big signings. The Leafs, Tavares came home, but we knew that. He was from Toronto. It was about him coming home, not to a city that was foreign to him. I do think that could be a part. I don't know if that's the pitch necessarily, but possibly a part of his thought process is, maybe he doesn't love the U.S. Maybe, I don't know, maybe he'd prefer to live in Canada. Maybe he'd prefer, I don't know. I mean, obviously at this point we don't know, but that is the most unique thing. It's the only team that is not in the United States. Maybe he would feel more comfortable up here. But, yeah, I mean, it would obviously be the biggest signing in Toronto sports history, Canadian sports history. It would immediately rattle the cages of every American media member, too. They'd freak.
Think about it.
Just like when the Raptors won the title. Remember how many sour Americans, like I'm talking big profile media members that were like, this sucks. Why is it up here? Why is Kawhi up here? Blah, blah, blah. And it was like we had a chance to kind of just revel in that. Like just like licking tears of, it's just like, Masai made the deal. Kawhi came up and it worked out beautifully. And yes, he left afterwards, and obviously we know, that didn't necessarily go the way that the Raptors wanted it to, or Raptor fans for that matter. But this would be the ultimate shock to the system for every national media guy, local media markets, New York, Boston, et cetera, them trying to explain this guy picked Toronto. And do I believe it's going to happen? I still don't. Like if I'm putting money down, I don't think he's going to come up here.
What if it's Kikuchi? What if Kikuchi's his best buddy from back home?
I want to believe that.
Talk about a hero. That guy will turn into a hero. And I don't know which one of you said the name George Springer. I've been reading just random baseball tweets. I'm kind of getting the feeling that it hasn't been that long with this kind of core group, but they really want to get away from almost all of it. I kind of heard Springer's name dabbling out there in some tweets, and I was like, what the hell? I mean, maybe the contract they'd be more interested in getting out in front of, but I don't know. It just seems like when you hear the names like Soto, Ohtani, it's like maybe they don't like these guys that are here right now, and maybe they just want to completely move away from the majority of them if they can, which would be crazy.
Well, and listen, if you land a big fish like Ohtani or you end up trading for a guy like Soto, that immediately becomes the face of your organization, your best player. Yeah. Everything revolves around that. And everyone's going to have to shift. That has to factor into the way you're thinking about team building. All of a sudden, Bo Bichette, Vladdy Guerrero, George Springer, you guys are further down the list.
Yes.
It's not your team anymore. You are clear cut behind this guy. And the Soto stuff, you see reports already coming out. Maybe the Jays aren't as much in on that. I think they feel they can control the messaging on that because, it's going to cost something to acquire him.
Right.
The crazy thing with the Ohtani reports and the buzz and the rumors is they are well aware of how people in Toronto are reacting to this stuff. People are freaking out. What's going to happen to Ohtani? Do you think he can come? If he came, what would it mean? And they could get in front of it if they don't believe they can get him or they don't really want him. They could leak it to the media by now through the local media or national media.
Yeah,
we're not in.
We're out. Yeah.
They could absolutely control that.
They haven't done that.
They haven't done that, but I also think they haven't done that because it's a lose-lose situation. If you do. If you leak you're out, then there's two explanations for it. We don't want to pay him. You can't explain that. That's an awful look. You're telling me Ohtani might want to come here and you're not willing to pay him?
Yeah.
You can't say that.
No, you can't.
And then the second explanation is he doesn't want to come here, and they don't really want that out there because then it's like you're not a serious player.
Yeah, it makes it
so
look bad.
it's a lose-lose in terms of controlling the messaging with Ohtani. But if he ends up signing somewhere else, you can bank on them quickly getting in front of this saying, we were right in there. He loved us. We were number 2. That's more than likely what's going to happen.
Not hearing the Yankees name scares the hell out of me, I'm telling you. It's usually the Yankees are at the top of the list, that Garrett Cole scenario when it was just he's going to the Yankees. And them being silent or not hearing the word the Yankees or the team the Yankees, it's it scares me that they're just going to come out of the blue and over the top, and they'll end up with both of them.
I think Soto's going to end up there. I do. I think the Jays are being used in that to up the price for the Yankees. And I think if they acquire Soto, they'll sign him. They'll give him a 10-year deal at massive money. And that monster will be in the AL East just terrorizing teams for the next decade.
All-you-can-eat penny pesto in the alumni box should get you over the top.
I think it 100% would.
I was there Saturday night. There was no penny pesto. Our guy Tyler, though, this is my first kind of experience, right?
Yeah, you had not
I don't
been
think
in
I've
there
ever
before.
been in the alumni box.
They run a nice operation.
Awesome.
I was so mad I saw Hayes. Hayes just randomly popped in.
Why were you mad you saw him?
Because I had no communication with you, I thought you went there with Dougie or Tux. And and you tapped my shoulder to say hi, and I was going to be like, you have the nerve to come with Dougie or Tux and not tell me.
Oh, the friends of friends.
I thought it would be the ultimate friend stealer move, and for a second I'm like, this guy's got a lot of balls to be pulling this stunt. But then he was with his kids and he was going to his seats. He just stopped by to say hi.
Yeah, I had never thought of that because Dougie Gilmore was down there. It was great to see Dougie, and my kids got a picture with Dougie. Then I had to. My wife was rattled after because she wasn't in the picture, and she's like, well, I wanted to get in. And then that became a whole conversation. I'm like, I don't know. We didn't want to bother Doug. He's down there. He had the alumni jacket on.
He had his alumni coat on. That's the first time I've ever seen him with the alumni coat.
Dougie was rocking the alumni jacket, man. It was perfectly fitted, too.
It did
You knew
look
it was
good,
going to look great.
Yeah.
I had thought of the idea that imagine I was down there with Doug.
Oh my God! If you were down there and
you
you're just say, "Yeah, me and Dougie just came across the street. We had dinner," I would have punched you right in the pills.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. But we were going up to our seats, and I saw Jolene, and then she said you were in there. I didn't know you were in there. I didn't know you were going down to the game.
Yeah,
and
then, and just the way you said it, look at this guy. I was like, "Oh my God, this guy's here." With Dougie or Tux, and I was for a split second infuriated.
I can understand that because that did not even cross my mind because I didn't know you were in there. It was a pop in. I wasn't there for the game. We were up in the seats, and Noodles, you were in there. You did a pop in and stay.
I popped in and stayed for 2 periods, which was I felt like the unwanted visitor. But
you played in the league. You can imagine. How I feel.
And we were gonna. I was with a couple of buddies, and we were gonna bail out. But they kept saying, stay. So it was nice of them. So I spent 2 periods there. It was great.
Awesome. All right, we'll come back on the game on Saturday night, Leafs-Bruins. Leafs are off until Thursday when they're in Ottawa. Yeah, so they've got more time off. Just a weird schedule to start the season. But the Leafs end up losing in overtime on Saturday. But it was a great game. We were all there. We all saw it. We'll get into it. We'll tee up the Leafs week. Luke Wilson still to come. Monday nighter tonight, Timo and Wilson. On the clock, a proposal will be made courtesy of Hayes and Bro to Timo and Wilson.
What?
Right, something will be. I'm going to put something on the line, and we'll see the stones you two have. All right, we'll see what Luke has in store if he's willing to accept this. If you don't accept it, it's the most gutless thing to ever happen in the history of the show.
Well, we can counter and we can tweak your offer. We're not just taking what you say.
It'll be presented, and you guys can either be gutless or not gutless.
And I will be in the end. I can say final answer.
Regis McLennan. All right, so more on that still to come. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. OverDrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line of the final score. Tell you what, we talk a lot about that building, Scotiabank Arena, Leaf games, and there are moments where you say, I'd prefer this, I'd prefer that. But when you get a chance to make a night of it, specifically on a Saturday night against a primetime opponent, there's nothing like it.
That building was
awesome.
I said to you off air, that's probably the best game I've watched in that building outside of a playoff game.
Right.
Obviously,
the difference between that and a Monday, it's incredible.
It's all about the buildup because downtown's rocking every restaurant. You go for dinner, couple of drinks, you're in there on time because there's no rush. And a lot of it is the opponent as well. There's a lot of Bruins fans there. There's animosity in the building, but it's respectful, but there's just chatter, there's buzz. People have plans after the game, so you're, getting out of it. There's kind of a vibe, and you can pinpoint certain points in a night where you say, maybe that should have been a little bit different, or maybe that could have been louder or whatever. But in terms of you're downtown for dinner at 5 and you're leaving downtown at 11 or midnight, there's nothing like it, like a big Leaf game on a Saturday night. And we all witnessed it from different viewpoints. Yeah. I had my kids down there for the first time, which is a gong show when you've got 2 kids under 10. You know what happened, too, is we went out for dinner. We're on the Keg on York, which is a great place. Yeah. And,
Dude, you got to do the spaghetti factory.
Well, we tried to get into so many different places. I couldn't get reservations.
Oh, yeah.
So I was trying to get all these different, and from where we were going, anyway, it doesn't matter, but we were coming in from a part of the city, wanted to be able to get out. We have dinner, we're at a table, and you know how it can be packed in a restaurant.
Yeah.
So we're at like a table for 4. Then there's a table for 2 beside us, table for 2 beside us.
Yes. You're basically all in one big table.
All one big table. And there's 2 gentlemen beside us. They're having dinner, drinks, whatever. And my daughters both order smoothies.
Yeah.
And we get about halfway through the dinner, and they're great. And then my youngest goes to grab something, and the smoothie spills everywhere.
Oh, no.
All over the guy beside us. Like, I mean, everywhere.
He's got his bar clothes on.
He was ready for a night. All over his jacket, his back, his pants. And I'm just sitting. I don't even know what to say to the guy.
Yeah.
I told him, like, can I order you some drinks? I ordered both of them drinks. I was so apologetic. And it was an accident, but
Yeah.
it was like, this is how we're starting the night. We're knocking smoothies over on the people beside us. But kids had a great night, and it was a great game. And the Leafs, technically, they were lucky to get a point because they scored 4 seconds left, and they were down 2 on multiple occasions, or down 2-0 early anyway. But I thought they played well. Like, I thought they deserved at least a point. I think you could say the same thing about Boston. I thought Boston showed up to play like they basically do every night.
Yeah, I think
Pasternak was outstanding.
Goalies were really good.
Goalies were
Both
really
nights.
good.
Like, both of them were really good.
Yeah.
Like,
Hallmark was really good.
Yeah, I thought he made some big saves, and I thought Woll did too. I mean, especially in overtime like that.
That's becoming his thing, man, what he does. Like, he is very composed in those big moments.
Yeah.
He is.
So
He's
far,
very good.
I thought he looked good. Go ahead.
I thought the game, they get props. It seems like they get props for different things every night, but they continue to do, and staying in the fight against Boston and being competitive, because it's going to be tight checking, and you're going to try to impose your will. I'm still trying to figure out what Toronto's is, what their A game is. But I'll tell you what, man, if you watch the game, they do so many things to self-inflict wounds on themselves, like silly little a veteran guy like TJ Brody, he'll give the puck away so many times, like just simple wraparounds to nobody, or they just can't do things out there to make life kind of easy on themselves and give them a great chance to take control of a hockey game, whether it's be dumping it in the wrong corner or just giveaways. And that's what they got to tighten up on. And it's on Sheldon to get that out of him. We saw him lose it against Tyler Bertuzzi the other night, but it's just like every coach will say it, man. Like, little things turn into big things. Positioning, where you pass the puck, not turning it over, and it allows your team to do the things that you're good at. And maybe they're getting a little better the last week by hanging in there and getting some points, but they'll be a hell of a lot better off when they just do that consistently, because they'll give themselves a chance to get to their game, which is an offensive game.
You know what you're pointing to, and that might come as the season goes on. It's the details of their game. Like, that's, we've talked about it, and I've said it, a lot on this show. If a team is buttoned up, and really tight, and early on, the teams have had a lot of success that are right at the top of the league. They were buttoned up on their details.
Yeah.
And,
that is exactly right. Their details. Once they get the details down, which sometimes I wonder, Jamie, are they ever going to be detail oriented? Because it seems like they want to kind of do their own thing offensively. But if they ever want to be, and the coach makes it mandatory to be detailed, then they might be serious. But until then, they won't be.
There's been pockets, and with this group, we'll just call it, not this year, but like over the last couple years. You remember when they went in and shut out Edmonton twice, and then the third guy, I think Freddie Lau won. It was like one goal.
That was one of those stretches where I was like, man, if they've got something here, now they're playing.
They were just buttoned up. And the defensive play was buttoned up. They had goaltending. Now, listen, they've got injuries. They've got deficiencies on the back end. You're still wanting more. There were some positives, too. Max Domi scored his first goal the other night.
True, I will give him that. That.
And I don't think the replacements have been awful.
No.
I don't think Lagesson, Benoit, they haven't been turnstiles and disasters.
No, they have. There's been a drop-off, but it hasn't been this man, those guys can't play. It's just, I think you get healthy. I still believe a trade should be right around the corner to help with that defensive depth. And then you just get more consistency, more buttoned up. I think Willie is starting to get a little bit frustrated. He's around it, but now it's not going in as easy as we saw it a week and a half ago.
He had a bunch of shots on net.
He did,
the other night.
He's around it again. But there was times where last 2 weeks he just throw the puck from anywhere on the ice and it would go in the net. Now it's like, okay, I got to work a little harder. I got to get to a little area. But I liked Mitch Marner's game. I thought Matthews, was right there, and obviously gets two.
He
big
needed
goals.
that, right? He needed that spark.
He did need. But that pass from Marner to Matthews for that tying goal, that's the difference in skill play or not. Because I thought, and I think everybody in the building, including the Bruins, thought that Marner was going to shoot that puck, and instead, backhand, forehand over to Matthews, and Matthews does a good job pulling out on that play. Because he gets available for it, because he knows that Mitch is going to find him.
Yep.
I'll give some credit
play.
to John Tavares, but no, we just want to focus in on him not back-checking properly when on the breakaway. And I just want to say one thing about that back-check. But Tavares does deserve credit for driving the net there and causing that whole flurry. But from my experience, when you're watching a guy like David Pastrnak go on a breakaway, it's a natural thing as stupid as that sounds. You're just waiting for it to end. You're like, this is going to be over. Yeah. And like 89% of the league would have done that. There's 10% of Charlie Hustles that would have said, because if it's Trent Frederick, you're like, you know what, I better get back because this guy might flub this. But when you're watching David Pastrnak, and I can think of myself watching a guy like Mario or something back in the day, I would be like, this is pretty much done, and there's like 5 seconds on the clock, so I'm just going to watch this guy end the game. And that's just kind of what your mind tells you. But everyone wants to focus on that John Tavares is a piece of garbage for not back-checking and getting back. Yes, he could have back-checked harder. So could William Nylander as the guy that turned it over. But it's just kind of it's hard to explain that's what a high percentage of players would do when a skilled player like that has a breakaway with 5 seconds left.
I was expecting Pastrnak to score that goal. And
I know, and you just kind of, it's like a car crash. You catch yourself watching it and you're like, oh boy, here we go. And you forget that you got to skate your ass off in case something happens. So Tavares had a good play on the tying goal, and let's not make him out to be something that he's not. He is a hardworking guy, but we love doing that in Toronto. Oh, they didn't punch the guy in the face in the corner after Marchand accidentally tripped him. So now they're a bunch of weasels, they're losers, and now Tavares doesn't work. It's just, let's leave it alone. A lot of players would have reacted like that. It was somewhat normal if it might be difficult for you to understand that.
Well, there's a lot to break down from all that. I think it's a great point you make, and it's an important one, that Tavares driving the net there, that created the chaos that allowed Matthews to score.
Yes.
Right.
And that takes some stones, and that's also a strength of his. When he's in and around the net, he's still a guy that can use his body, his stick skills to get in and either score or create, something he can do very strongly, regardless of where he is, whether he was 18 or he's 33.
Right.
I think what kind of got exposed, because everything you said there, I think is, I'll take your word for it, and I think that makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of NHLers in that moment, you look at it instinctively, you're like, how did we get here where Pastrnak is now all of a sudden on a breakaway with 10 seconds left? But I also think a part of it might have been subconsciously, and this is why you don't see Tavares playing a ton of 3-on-3, because he doesn't skate well enough.
Yeah.
You know, like he's not skating well enough to create on 3-on-3. A lot of it is you got to skate to your own open ice.
And if it's man on man, you got to break away from that guy.
Exactly. And it might have been a part of, I doubt it, that this creeped in, but it's like he wasn't getting back anyway.
Right.
Like he wasn't going to get back there anyway. And maybe he was hoping, hey, it's a quick up and he gets a chance to go the other way.
Yeah.
But yes, if you're going to focus on that,
I gave him the benefit of the doubt, Hayes.
Yeah, I hear you.
The quick up going the other, because there wouldn't have been enough time for that. You know what I mean? There would not have been enough. If he was saying, "Oh, I'm going to hang out here," maybe it comes the other way. There was not enough time for that, so I'm not giving him that one on the built-in excuse. It's just a natural reaction to see Pastrnak, and your shoulders shrug, and you're like, "I got to watch this guy."
It's a freebie. It's an unnecessary way. I get that there's a turnover, but Tavares here
fell. That's just, I'm telling you, that's, I can see myself there skating with Mario on a breakaway saying, I got to watch this guy roof one right now, and I have to skate off the ice, and we're losing the game.
I'll be honest, even if he skated his ass off, he's not making it back.
He would not have made it back. Now, I'm wondering where you marry the two of like what we talked about with details in that, like what does it mean if he does skate his ass off and miss it by a foot? Does it
I
matter?
I get that. Or maybe he swats it away. It's not about stopping Pasternak. It's swatting it out of Marchand's hand if he busts his ass back to the net. And by the way, William Nylander's the guy that fell, and it was Marchand that tripped off, and he was nowhere to be found either.
That one is more of an issue for me. Like the Tavares one has become something that's trending online because the camera caught him.
Right.
Willie, where the hell was Nylander? Nylander comes into the picture when the puck's already in the net.
Yeah.
Like, yes, he fell, and I guess he got up and maybe looked the wrong way, but I don't think William Nylander was hauling ass to get back. And I think it was also the end of his shift. Listen, it was they got lucky it got into overtime, but they created that.
Yeah. And there were chances at both ends.
There were chances on both ends in overtime. They could have ended it. It adds insult to injury a little bit because Marchand is the guy that ends it. And they didn't touch him all night.
Yeah.
And I hear what you're saying that, maybe it was blown out of proportion, the Liljegren stuff, although I think there's some revisionist history in that because I got to take issue with the idea that Sheldon Keefe, I believe on Saturday, was claiming that it was like a classic Toronto overreaction. Meanwhile, he said the next day he hated everything about the reaction.
You're right.
He hated everything about the reaction, but now it's an overreaction and it's a typical Toronto media, firestorm, which is completely bogus and revisionist history. They had a meeting that they made sure got out. You can't claim now, a month later, because it's died down, we actually don't care that much. Right. Or people reacted, inappropriately or overreacted. The Leafs were the ones that made sure everyone knew about their team meeting. And Sheldon Keefe was on the record saying he hated everything about the lack of reaction. So, again, I thought something might happen on Saturday night. It didn't, so be it. Not the end of the world. But to watch Marchand close it on you, that guy's been owning you for a decade. He has been. It is long overdue the Leafs get the Bruins back and him back because he walked out of this building moon dancing again.
Smiling on his face, yeah.
And
he scored a hat trick last night.
Crazy. Yeah.
And he's kind of been quiet. Like, he's been quiet.
I didn't think he played great on Saturday night. Like, I didn't notice him much. He was okay. He wasn't great. It was the Pasternak and Ullmark show, I thought, for Boston.
Yeah.
Largely.
But that's what they got to kind of, like, if you sitting and watching live, you get a different perspective. But you can tell that Noodles calls it the detail. The details of the Bruins, it's simple stuff, man. They're going to squeeze you to the outside. They're going to forecheck, and they're going to
clog the middle.
They clog the middle, and they make life simple on themselves. And they'll get pucks in, and when they clog the middle like that, that allows their defensemen to be aggressive and then intercept passes, and that's where their transition game can be strong and get pucks to a Marchand and a Pasternak on the fly, and that's how they can do some damage. They're not doing damage by floating and cheating. They're doing simple things to allow them, and I hate myself because I sound like a coach, but they do it the simple way, man. They make life easy on themselves, and it allows their skill players to do great things. Simple stuff, man.
Yeah. Well, and like Pasternak is an example of that even in a system like that, you can still score 60.
Yes.
Still have 115
points. It's not like he's getting cheated where he's like, I can't do the things I like to do.
Yeah.
Wrong.
Yeah.
He scored 61 goals last year.
Got 36 points in 24 games. Like,
as a superstar. I mean, that's what he is. There's no disputing it that Pasternak is one of the 10 best players in the world.
Yeah, he is.
I don't think it's even up for debate.
Yeah, he's a hell of a player.
Guy's a great player, and he scored you like the wall to get the first one. I think it kind of went, but you got to stop that from there.
Yeah.
But the pass he made to Shattenkirk was outrageous.
That was ridiculous.
Outrageous.
I forgot Shattenkirk was there.
So did I, man. He scored, and I looked at my kids. I'm like, who was that? And they're like, how would I know who that is?
Yeah, I forgot.
And I was like, oh, it's Shattenkirk.
Yeah, that's
because he went down to Anaheim for a while, and now he's he shaved his head. He looks great out there.
Yeah.
Dancing.
No rebuild for him.
He needed to go up. He needed to go Messier up top.
Yes, he did. But even JVR on the Bruins was a weird kind of
weird look,
vibe,
but
isn't
all
it?
of a sudden
Seeing
he
JVR.
But he
just
I'll tell
blends
you what,
into the
that
game.
Donnie Sweeney, he deserves props for what he's done there the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's the drafting and trades, but it's also like picking at the carcass and bringing guys in like Shattenkirk, like JVR, like Morgan Geekie, he just seems to get guys that fit. I think Donnie Sweeney does it. He runs a nice operation down there.
Yeah, listen, this is it's happened in a few different places in the league where they had to take a step back after success, and now they've absolutely taken off again. Boston being an example of that, where there was a year or two where they were still, I believe a playoff team, but it wasn't like a cup contention kind of
domination
stuff. Domination
yeah.
kind of stuff. And they turned, Julian left, and then they were kind of taking a step back, and Sweeney and Neely were like, all right, where are they going to take this program? And now, since then, the Bruins, the last couple of years, have been probably the best run organization in the league and done the most winning. And then you look at the Rangers. They sent that letter out saying we're taking a big step back, but we're going to get back. They are back. They might be the best team in the East. And the Kings are the other example in the West, where the Kings, they bottomed out. They had the second overall pick, Quentin Byfield. There was a big transition. They had to move on from guys.
That Byfield's becoming a player.
Absolutely. But look at the moves the Kings have made with Doughty there, with Kopitar there.
Yeah.
Fiala.
Yeah.
Dubois.
Well, they made smart trades, smart signings, smart drafting. Yeah. They're getting goaltending that I don't think will continue.
No, but they traded that Jersey kid. Like that kid's a pretty good player.
Absolutely.
If you look at it, they've made some bold moves where you thought, okay, even the Jonathan Quick, hey, we're moving away from you.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's, you mentioned that was a cornerstone backbone piece that they were like, we need to upgrade, we need to change here. Now, Quick has found a resurgence with the Rangers.
He's been really good.
He got a shutout the other day, and the first thing he mentioned was Benoit Allaire, the goalie coach there, which I thought was pretty cool.
One thing I can't figure out about that organization, it's like Doughty makes $10 million, Kopitar makes $11 million, or whatever those guys make out there. But it always seems like they're acquiring or signing quality players at big tickets.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like they have those guys that are making a lot of money. I'm bringing it back to Toronto. It's like Toronto could never get involved in those types of things because all the guys that they make so much money. But they've got Doughty and Kopitar and Fiala making big money out there, and yet they're still getting other guys.
Well, like Pierre-Luc Dubois is an example. They paid him $8.5 million. And Philippe Deneau, they give a big contract to.
Yes.
But again, there was that transition period where they moved off Muzzin, they moved off Alec Martinez, they moved off a couple of guys up front. Jeff Carter, they moved on from a number of guys, and they said we're going to reset here. And I guess,
but the difference too, Brian, is some of the young guys have pushed through.
Yes,
Trevor Morris, a player.
Well,
right.
The Leafs traded him. Yeah.
Right, but I mean that's who they brought in. They brought in
smart plays.
Like Grunstrom plays. Kaliev.
Toronto.
Yeah. Adrian Kempe pushed through as a really good player.
Yeah. Kaliev's a good player. He was in Hamilton. He was a good OHL
But that's what I'm
player.
saying. Some of their young players, and then they draft and develop. They've got some guys on the back end too, the defensemen that are really good. That Mikey Anderson's a good player. They sign that. They get that Gavrikov kid or the guy from Columbus.
Yeah, and kept him.
Matt Waugh there.
They're obviously doing a really good job.
Yep.
And they got a good coach who's been around the league for a while. But I guess listen. The Leafs are not in a position where they should be thinking, okay, we got to take a step back here. But if you're going to keep a couple of these guys at big tickets, what the Rangers are proving, what the Kings are proving, Boston never had big tickets. They do now with Pasternak. McAvoy's making some money. They didn't have the same issues because they didn't have massive money on their books. But basically, if you have a couple of studs, you have a couple years to reset. But there's no excuse for you not finding the right players quickly.
Well, they got to add
and get going again.
Yeah, the Leafs can add. I mean, we'll see what Tree does on the back end, right?
Yeah.
Sure, he's out there grinding, but it's noisy because there's a door-off deal, right?
Well, and he scored the other night too, right?
Oh yeah, empty netter to win the game.
All right, we got Luke Wilson in studio in about 10 minutes. We've got Steve Phillips from the winter meetings, Chris Johnston from Seattle, the Board of Governor meetings happening in the NHL. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, Luke Wilson will join us in studio in about 10 minutes. Taylor Swift flew all the way to Green Bay, Wisconsin to watch a loss last night. Got to be difficult.
She looked very comfortable.
Yeah. Wasn't exactly dressed like, a local Wisconsinite, a cheesehead. But
the only thing I'm fascinated about that, and I'm not going to make any assumptions about what people are like, but when is she going to get tired of Mahomes' wife? That is very interesting to me. And when that blows up and she ghosts her, that is going to be a scene. A scene.
I don't know. I mean, maybe they're friends. Maybe maybe it's more just, hey, we need to share a suite like on the road. They weren't pulling the up in the last row at Lambeau, sitting outside routine. And I was talking to my wife about it last night because she's a Swiftie, and we had this big, not argument, it was very civil. But
Debate.
yeah, debate that like her argument was the NFL should be giving Taylor Swift everything for free because it benefits them greatly, her being there.
Yeah.
And my argument was with or without Taylor Swift, it's still the biggest monster there is in the United States. There's nothing, they don't need Taylor Swift.
Right.
Like, I don't think she would have got that suite for free. Like, she'd have to pay for that stuff.
Well, I think they would have stuffed her in there for free.
You think so?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
You think she would get a
Because
suite
Green-
for free on the road in Green Bay is publicly owned.
I know, but Green Bay, whoever's running the show there, you make that phone call and say Taylor Swift's coming, they'll clear out a suite.
happens.
Or whoever owns that suite goes, yes, we will.
Well, that might be
we will
different.
give that up for her because we want.
It's all about the cachet.
15.
You got enough cachet, people are going to get you into the building free of charge.
Okay.
End of story.
Here was where it ended. I'm curious to get your take on this. We'll get Luke's take on this. We'll answer it in the next hour. Who is a bigger brand in North America, the NFL or Taylor Swift?
That's interesting.
Bigger brand, like more popular brand.
NFL.
I think so too, like a lock. My wife
The
was
NFL,
adamant.
the
it was Taylor
NFL
Swift.
is like a $100 billion entity. Or
Well,
whatever.
she's not far behind, man. She is a monster.
But the NFL is like a lifestyle.
It's a machine. There's a day
it's
for
a
the
machine.
I hear you. Okay.
It's not
Luke
Taylor
Wilson
Swift.
coming up. I agree
not
with you.
Taylor Swift.
But Doogie brought up a good point. She sold out 6 straight shows here. The NFL came up for 6 days. You think they'd sell 6 straight games?
That's here.
I know.
So what?
But
like
I'm arguing
they go
against
all over
myself,
the
though.
world.
I agree with you.
Like I don't
All
know.
right.
The NFL is.
I'm looking at Luke Wilson right now. I have a proposal for Luke. Gutless or not gutless? That's coming up next hour. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.